It is a very different slate for today in MLB DFS than we had last night, because last night I felt really good about the pitchers. They did well. I felt good about them, though, in a situation where I felt comfortable building around those pitchers and differentiating with the stacks. For today, it's literally the opposite. And for me, with my MLB DFS process, like where I want to always commit to my pitchers and differentiate with the stacks, puts me in kind of a weird situation because I just don't feel as great about the pitchers as I do about the stacks. So we're going to talk about that today. You can ask away if there is a pitcher I did not discuss this morning who you're super curious about. Hit me up. Let me know what is on your mind as you fill out lineups for Wednesday's main slate. Welcome on in to the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions about tonight's MLB DFS slate for the next 25 minutes. We can talk pitchers, stacks, one-offs, general MLB DFS process, value plays, whatever is on your mind. Feel free to fire away. No matter where you are watching this stream, you can get your question in. We'll answer it live here on air, taking them from the YouTube chat section, but also over on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. Get those questions in, and we'll answer them throughout the stream for today. Now, the focal point, as mentioned for me, is going to wind up being the two main stacks that I like. So let's go over here to the heat chart and show you why I like them. The first one I like a lot is the Tampa Bay Rays. They did not come through all that much for me last night. A couple guys were okay, but overall, disappointing for sure. They're facing Kohei Arihara, and Arihara, a couple of starts so far in the big leagues. He looks like a guy who's probably going to wind up allowing a ton of balls in play in the majors. That's good for stacking. We want to maximize balls in play, give ourselves chances at those high upside plays like extra base hits and stuff like that. But also he is allowing a good amount of hard contact on those balls in play so far. It takes a while for that number to stabilize. About 70 batted ball events is when we start to see stuff like barrel percentage and ground ball rate stabilize. So we're nowhere near that yet with Arihara, but the early returns say he's going to allow a lot of balls in play. A lot of them will probably be decently well struck. That is like the ideal recipe for stacking. So I think the Rays are an amazing stack for today. I could also say a similar thing about the Braves. Part of that is a matchup. Nick Neidert is someone who, doesn't profile as someone who's going to get a lot of strikeouts based on his minor league track record, based on what he's done in his career in the majors. A very small sample once again, but doesn't profile as someone who will get a lot of strikeouts, so he'll let up balls in play. Not a big ground ball guy. And the Braves are very good. And I think that that's an exciting thing here because I have not allowed myself, or I've not gotten to stack the Braves all that much so far this year, but I think we can here. So between the Rays and the Braves, I feel outstanding about two stacks. And the reason that makes me a little bit conflicted is that stacking is always going to be more volatile than pitching because pitching is easier to predict. Like if you're looking at sample sizes, your sample size for hitters is going to be about 30 plate appearances or so per game, whereas your sample size for pitchers is, 90 to 100 pitches. That's a much larger sample size, which means your ability to predict what's going to happen is going to be better at pitcher than it will be at hitter. So ideally, we'd always be able to say, okay, I want pitcher A, B, and C, and I want to just build around those guys. And then I will have, 4 to 5 stacks that I like. Tonight, it's really kind of those two stacks that stand out to me above the crowd as being really good stacks. So I think I'm going to go reverse process of where I'm usually at and trying to, build around those two stacks, the Rays and the Braves, and then filter through the pitchers, make sure I get the right combinations. But it's a very uncomfortable spot to be in based on the way that I want to play things for DFS, but I do think it is the correct way to play things for tonight. So those are the main things for me. Focusing on the Rays and the Braves for stacking, differentiating with pitchers. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to hit us up, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Facebook, and get those questions in about tonight's slate. Again, if there's a stack that I did not mention there that you love, feel free to fire away. But let's talk about some pitching here in the interim. And some pitchers I do like. Again, I think that it's pretty close between all these guys. My top 3 pitchers for tonight are Lance McCullers, Dustin May, and Charlie Morton. I think that McCullers and May are, kind of like in a tier of their own. Morton is like another tier behind them, and he's fine. But I don't really feel like there is a surefire stud available on the slate. Like, you can nitpick all these guys. Nitpicking McCullers, walks too many guys, lets up some hard contact, and that's kind of what you would expect going forward too, given that he's leaning heavily on a new slider. Sliders tend to be pitches that can let up hard contact, that can lead to a high walk rate, and McCullers is a guy who walked a lot of people before he added the slider. So I expect the walk rate to stay high for McCullers, and probably would expect him to let up some hard contact as well, just because that's what he's been, and that's why he profiles with this new pitch. So that's the concerns with him. Concerns with Dustin May, maybe the strikeouts won't fully be there just yet. He did get strikeouts in his first start this year, got some strikeouts towards the end of last year, which is why I feel pretty good about him. But historically, going beyond, the early parts of 2020, back before that as well, never really a high strikeout pitcher. So I would say that there are some concerns there with Dustin May. That's how you can nitpick him. With Morton, I don't know how long the Rays will let him go. Got some injury concerns with him. They are a very smart team, which can sometimes be tough for DFS because they may decide, we want to keep Morton healthy. We want to keep him going through the lineup, 2 times or so, and then get him out of there after that. We kind of see that in his pitch counts, 76 and 83 pitches in his first 2 starts this year. Didn't see a big climb between start 1 and start 2, which is concerning. Now, the counterpoint to that is if you look back to that second start for Morton, he went 6 innings. And in the 7th inning, 2 of the 3 batters who were due up were left-handed batters. So they brought in a lefty and had the lefty face those guys instead of Morton. So maybe that's the explanation for the low pitch count there. That's why I'm going to put him third. If I thought he would stick at 83 pitches, I wouldn't use him because that's just not enough for DFS. I think there is a potential for him to go deeper, though. And he's looked good. The sample I have here on Morton is over his past 4 starts. He's been throwing a slider more often that time. 29% strikeout rate, 3.22 skill interactive ERA. Looking really good. He's getting back to the things he used to do, which is getting strikeouts and suppressing hard contact. So I do like Morton. I just have some concerns lingering around the pitch count, because if we're not going to get the upside for 90 to 100, that's a little bit concerning. But I think that there is the upside for more. So Morton's number 3 for me, but I do have McCullers and May pretty easily as 1-2 for tonight. Morton's still deserving of exposure, but not as much as those 2. Question over on YouTube from Michael. Love the content, Jim. Thank you, Michael. You mentioned Meadows and Lau from Tampa Bay this morning. Who else would you recommend from Tampa Bay? Let's go over to their lineup here, and let's just pull them up here over the FanDuel tab because their lineup is out. That's great. I would say Meadows and Lau are 1 and 2 by a pretty significant margin. Got Yandy Diaz batting 4th. He is $2,600. That's a good spot in the order, and a good spot in the order. Low salary for him. I do want to check out his numbers versus righties. This would be since the start of last year. A 14% fly ball rate for Yandy. That's disappointing. Let's see if he's made any swing changes so far early on to start this year. I want more fly balls out of the guys that I'm going to use. Like, I'm going to use him because he's $2,600 batting 4th, but I'd be more enthusiastic about using him if he were changing his swing plane, getting a bit more lift on the ball. 0.65 ISO so far this year. That's not ideal. His launch angle is 0.3, better than negative 7.9, so I guess that's something. Ground ball rate down to 52% from 66. Fly ball rate from 11 to 28. So he's been less extreme than he was last year, kind of back to where he was previously, which is fine. It's not something I actively want to seek out. I don't really like using guys with super low fly ball rates, but it's at least better than it was last year. So let's actually build this out here. I think that I go Meadows first. I'm going to go with Lau second. We'll put him at second base just because I don't want to fill outfield yet. And then we probably will go Yandy batting 4th. Just think that makes sense to go there. We'll put him at first base to get some increased flexibility. So we got 3 guys there. I think you're going to look into Joey Wendell. Wendell is someone I was pretty dismissive of to start the year. Talked about him on opening day, and I was grateful that he wasn't in the lineup because I thought that it would be a mistake to go after him because the salary was low, and he's actually been pretty okay to open up this year. He can steal some bases, which is good, but I've been more surprised at the power out of Joey Wendell that he's shown so far. Not sure if that will stick around, but a 207 ISO, that's pretty good. 9.1% barrel rate, that's also very good. scroll down here and see if there's been some swing changes for Wendell as well. The ground ball rate's actually still pretty high. Not a ton of fly balls. He's just hitting the ball harder than he was previously. So maybe there's been a change that has allowed him to unlock this higher hard hit rate. I don't know. I think the difference between Wendell and Diaz for me is that Wendell's $3,500, whereas Diaz is $2,600. So that gap to me is pretty significant. I do still think that Wendell is a worthwhile play because we love the Rays. He's batting fifth. He's hitting the ball well. That's a good thing. Let's compare him here to Arozarena because Arozarena is actually pretty close to him in salary. I want to see what the numbers look like comparing those two. We've got Arozarena here, 86 plate appearances against righties since the start of last year, 131 WRC plus, 23% fly ball rate, but a lot of hard contact. Some strikeouts there, though the strikeouts are not a concern against Arihara. So let's pull up in the page here for Arozarena, see what his early season numbers are looking like. Again, for early season numbers, you want to focus on just a couple of batted ball numbers, put a little bit of stock into it. Look at strikeouts. Good number of strikeouts for Arozarena so far. Not the best batted ball profile, the 7% barrel rate. So I think I would still lean towards Arozarena over Wendell, even though Wendell will probably put the ball in play a lot more often. But I think that Arozarena just profiles as someone who is a higher upside option for DFS. So I would be leaning Arozarena. Manuel Margot batting sixth. I know that Alvin asked about him. Margot against righties since the start of last year, 35% fly ball rate. That's pretty good. Not a lot of strikeouts, 9 stolen bases. Hasn't translated to as good of an isolated slugging, but the batted ball numbers actually are kind of there. I want to see his barrel percentage because you can sometimes just get a lot of lazy fly balls or balls that are just kind of hard hit. 9% barrel rate from Margot so far this year. That's pretty good. Pretty solid power numbers, low strikeout rate. It's not actually too bad. The fly ball rate is pretty good. Actually, a good number of ground balls. So I actually don't mind Margot's profile. The one issue with him is that he is $3,000. I'm trying really hard to avoid Yoshi Tsutsugo because I feel like I've lost a lot of money on Yoshi Tsutsugo over the course of this year so far. The reason for doing so is that he hits the ball in the air a lot, a 49% fly ball rate, a 163 ISO. Those are good numbers. So realistically, I'm going to use Yoshi Tsutsugo again tonight. But because I have salary flexibility, I would like to not go there as often as I have the most recent couple of nights. The upside is that, we got these guys like Dustin May and Lance McCullers who are not prohibited from a salary perspective. So I don't need to go down to guys like Tsutsugo all that often. So I can allow myself to use Arozarena, allow myself to use Wendell, maybe go Margot, but just knowing myself and knowing my personal weaknesses, I'm probably going to use Tsutsugo again anyway. So if I'm ranking the Rays, I probably go, after considering salary, I still put Meadows number 1, despite the fact that he is the highest salary guy outside of Arozarena. I go Lau 2, probably go Yandy 3, I think. And then 4, it's either going to wind up being Wendell, Arozarena. I think they're 4 or 5. Tsutsugo is there. Margot is Tsutsugo, Margot 6th-ish. I do think that Adames is sometimes interesting. Let me check to make sure he's actually out there for the Rays. Pull up their lineup once again. Yeah, Adames batting 9th. That's probably low enough where we can lower him. He had some decent power numbers in the past, so I have been okay with using him, but a lot of strikeouts. Less of a concern today, given the pitcher they're facing, but batting 9th is a downgrade for him. So I would say it's tiered out where Meadows and Lau are 1 and 2, and then Diaz is in the third or the second tier, probably by himself, and then Arozarena, Wendell in the third tier. Then we're looking at Tsutsugo, Margot as guys I'm willing to consider, but more rotational options within that Rays offense. Jesus, any other pitchers you like for tonight? Yeah, he's talking about yesterday. He asked if he should use St. Louis hitters against Strasburg. I said no. I was wrong. So kudos to you, Jesus. You were right there. So let's check out some other pitchers we like for tonight. Mentioned that the ranking for me is going to be McCullers, May, and Morton. Other guys to consider, I don't mind Carlos Rodon. I talked about Rodon as being an option when he was on the slate on Monday initially, and got scratched because of the flu bug, or he had the stomach issue. It sounds like he's okay, though, so I do think we could go to Rodon. As far as other options, I'm not a huge Zach Plesac guy. He lets up some hard contact, not as many strikeouts as you would ideally like. It is a Zach Wheeler revenge game against the Mets, but not sure what his strikeout rate will shake out to be this year. Tough matchup. The Mets are pretty good, especially against righties. Don't strike out all that much. So I think to me, it really is all about going with those three I mentioned before, potentially putting Rodon in as the fourth pitcher for tonight. But I feel pretty good about building around with McCullers 1, May 2, Morton 3, Rodon 4. And if I don't get to Rodon, that's probably okay. But I do think that I want to get to Morton for sure, because I think that, he could very well be the highest scoring pitcher in tonight's slate. And again, the numbers I have on him for his past 4 starts, very, very good. So I do think that Morton is worthwhile for today. Ron is asking any home run challenge calls for tonight. So those of you who have not played yet, the home run challenge that you can play over on FanDuel, you pick 3 hitters and you get a score where it's just the total number of home runs that they hit. You want to get a little bit weird there because you don't want to be on the same batters everyone else is on. But I would say if you're looking for like a chalky pick, Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be a pretty solid. Let me pull up the Braves line to make sure he's in there. Yep, batting leadoff, so we're good to go there. Freddie Freeman will be a good option. Marcell Ozuna, a good option, batting third. I would say all 3 of those guys are solid. If I'm going to go someone I think will be a bit less popular, I think that Lau might wind up being your guy, Brandon Lau, just because I don't think, if you're looking at the Rays lineup, the first guy you turn to is Meadows. People will probably turn to a Rosarena before him as well. I think that Lau is really, really solid, though. So if you're looking, Ron, for someone who is a little bit less popular, I would say that Brandon Lau could be your guy. But if you're okay going chalk, I would say Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna, and then Meadows, the main people I would turn to for tonight within that home run challenge. Also, Alec Boehm, pretty solid one for the Phillies. I don't think the weather there is all that good from a temperature perspective. 61 degrees for that game. That's not that great. Also, if you're tuning in, if you didn't listen this morning, I mentioned that the Mariners-Orioles game looked really gross from a weather perspective. The weather there still looks really gross. So I am operating under the assumption right now is that that game does not play. So I talked about stacking the Mariners. Probably not going to do that because I don't know if that game will play. It's very possible it's already been postponed. I just haven't seen it yet since we started the stream. So I would assume that game does not play, and I'd be inclined to make my plans as if it will not. Jesus likes Plesac for tonight. Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm just lower on him than others. He gets a lot of pitches. That's a good thing for sure. 94 and 97. The sample I have here is his past 7 starts with more four-seam fastballs. 3.74 skill interactive ERA, 25% strikeout rate. He actually has like a similar profile to what I have for May. The difference is that May is facing the Rockies, whereas Plesac is facing the White Sox. The White Sox have lost a lot of oomph recently, but I'd still rather my pitcher facing the Rockies, especially at home. Cool weather in Los Angeles for tonight. It's cool in Chicago too. But I think that the advantage very much lies with May over Plesac. So I get why you like him. I think that makes sense. I just don't tend to be as high on him as others do, especially when I think I could just go with May against the Rockies instead. Diffuse. Austin Riley and Braves stacks. Thoughts? So the reason I've been lower on Riley in general is that he just never stops striking out. But as mentioned, we can look at strikeout numbers early in the year, see what we're seeing there. Strikeouts tend to stabilize after, I think, 60 plate appearances based on the numbers that Fangraphs has run. We're not there yet, but we're getting to 40-ish, so we can at least look at them and see what they say. Riley's strikeout rate, 29%. It's fine. No extra base hits so far this year. That's concerning. A 4.3% barrel rate. That's not great. The ground ball rate's 57%, so I'm not going to be super into Austin Riley myself. That could wind up being a mistake, but I think we have other good options within this Braves team. We actually haven't talked about them yet, so let's actually do that now. Pull up some Braves. I think that Marcell Ozuna, absurdly undersalaried, $2,800. Tremendous number for him. Let's actually clear this out here. Yeah, okay. Let's go with Ozuna in the outfield. I want to get to Acuna because he's fun and he's great. Hot take that Ronald Acuna Jr. is fun. I like Swanson. He's striking out a bit too much this year as well. The numbers for him have not been that good so far, but I have more faith in him bouncing back than Riley as of this point. So we'll put Swanson in there. And then Freeman, I think we can actually make this work because we have the two value plays and because pitching salaries are not that restrictive for tonight. So let's put in McCullers and see what we got here. We've got $28.75. I can work with that, especially with guys like Yandy being pretty low salaried, Lowry being low salaried on the Rays. So I think that's what we're looking at for the most part for the Braves for tonight. Aaron, based on the best pitchers, relatively low salaries, are there any one-off chalky plays you recommend? So I'm going to take this to mean, Aaron, this is me. I would say everyone from the Braves and the Rays is a great one-off because I'm just going to stack them. But let's assume you've already locked in. You're almost maxed out. You've got 4 Rays, 3 Braves. You need one more hitter. You got to lock in there. You can go with anyone. That's the way I'm going to take this question because, whatever. Other players I like right-handed Phillies. So Alec Boehm, awesome. Andrew McCutchen, really good. Those guys are right around $3,000. So if you're looking in that area, I would say they're going to be my top options for tonight. I would say some Astros guys could be one-offs facing Michael Fulmer. I think that Fulmer is intriguing because he's looked decent in the bullpen this year, but a lot of guys can look decent in the bullpen as it gets stretched out. That may go back. I'm rooting for Fulmer because when you see guys perform well, get hurt, and then slip off, you want them to bounce back. So I want Fulmer to do well, just not fully convinced that he's there yet. So I think the Astros work for one-offs. I think the Phillies work for one-offs. Specifically, again, guys like Boehm, McCutchen, Rhys Hoskins is in there. So I think that's what I'm looking at. So after you get your Rays and your Braves, I think you turn to the Phillies. I think you turn to the Astros. That's probably the main outlets for me. I'm not going at the Dodgers. I know that they look really good here on the sheet because the numbers I have on John Gray are for his past 6 starts. He's looked better in this most recent sample this year. So the Dodgers may look good based on the sheet, but I'm a little bit lower on them. I'm probably just going to keep that one where it is. I'm okay taking more of a wait-and-see approach and seeing how Gray performs in this one. Because if he does good against the Dodgers, then, sweet. We can potentially look him as a pitcher later on. But for now, okay, avoiding them. So to me, it's get your Rays and Braves first, then Phillies, then Astros for hitters for tonight. Alvin, is it okay to put any stock into hitters' barrel numbers and percentage over the last 7 days to see if they're hitting well? I don't think it's the worst idea. I'll say that because I like to look at data. And to me, that says I want to wait till we get 60 batted ball events before I put a lot of stock in stuff. However, there can be times where guys are just locked in. I'm sure at our jobs, you've had times where you felt that you're just locked in. I've felt that at times too, and then come crashing back to earth a couple days later. We've all had those times where we feel good, and baseball players can get in the same groove where you're just you are quote unquote hot. So I think that there is at least some value. The reason that I would be a little bit wary of it is because A, very small sample, B, you're dealing with a lot of different pitchers. So a 7-start sample, let's say you're facing the Brewers. The Brewers aren't going to let up a lot of hard contact because they got Corbin Burns throwing gas. You got Brandon Woodruff, who is tremendous. You got Freddie Peralta, who's disgusting. And those numbers may be suppressed as a result of that. So that's the issue you run into. But Alvin, if you can properly account for matchups, properly account for the context in which batters have been in, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. And I think especially when there are changes. So a hitter comes back from an injury. I will look at very small samples of batted ball data to see what they've been doing. If I don't see a whole, I was looking at Kyle Schwarber earlier today, trying to see if I could trust him coming off of the COVID injured list. I wanted to look into his batted ball data to see if there was anything for Schwarber to make me believe that he was usable for tomorrow's slate. Because I do want to stack the Nationals tomorrow. And what I saw was okay. So yeah, if there are changes, a guy comes off the injured list and you want to see if he's hitting the ball well, I think that there is great value in that. If they're coming off the general injured list and you want to just see what they're doing, Aaron Judge, when he came back from that side injury, because I was like, oh man, that might be an oblique. That's pretty scary. First thing I did was pull up his game log and see what his batted ball data looked like for a very small sample. So yeah, Alvin, I think specifically in those situations where there is a change, most often they'll be due to injury, but like there was a story 3 or 4 years ago about Byron Buxton working with Torrey Hunter, trying to work more about identifying pitches. There was a tangible change in Byron Buxton's plate discipline data like right after that. So if you read a story about a guy making a change, you can look in for that. If there's a guy from an injury perspective, maybe someone got a day off to try to get their head right, you can look at that too. So Alvin, especially when there are things where there are changes, yes, I think that there is value in batted ball data. But outside of changes, it does get tricky because of the small samples, because context matters so much. But again, if you're looking into guys who are in new situations, I actually do recommend it in that situation. So very good question there. I think that it's worth discussing, especially right now. We are getting some guys coming back from injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, in those situations, absolutely would recommend. Aaron says hi over on Facebook. Hello, Aaron. Welcome back. Nice to have you back in these chats from last year once again. That is all the time that we have for today here on this Q&A. We are back once again tomorrow. It's a 5-game slate. It's I assume it's a 5-game slate based on when the games start. If you want to see the sheet for tomorrow, there it is. As you can see, pitching looks a little dicey for tomorrow. We'll talk about that and get you set for tomorrow's slate on the Solo Shot at 9 a.m. on YouTube and the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that. And then here on the Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern to get you set for the main slate. Make sure you are subscribed on your platform of choice, whether it be YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also hit the like button over on YouTube because that helps us out quite a bit as well. We appreciate all of you who have done so already and for tuning in for today. Good luck with your DFS lineups. If you have additional questions for me, I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow on Thursday for more MLB DFS. This has been the Fantasy Live Q&A.